Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rydro Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on my website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, as well as the American Guns and Glory Network, YouTube, and numerous other media. If your local internet provider doesn't carry Fired Up, ask them to do that. We'll help them through. A new show is posted every Thursday around 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Our audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners on Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your part of Nevada. If you have questions or comments, send me an email to bob@firedupmail.com. That's bob@firedupmail.com, or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. Again, that's 702-257-1060. If you don't leave contact information, I cannot call you back. A note on that, we've had a lot of telephone problems in the area where my office is. And if you have sent me an email or sent me a voicemail on my answering machine, you need to do it over again because a lot of them just disappeared over the last 4, 5, 6 days. So we've got it fixed now, I hope. So give me a call, leave a message, and I'll be sure then that the thing is working. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms each week in the United States, rarely, truthfully, are fully covered by mainstream media. I always select a few for my listeners' education. Most are good shootings, some are questionable, sometimes they're just plain wrong, but they're all educational for those of you that keep a defensive firearm in your home or carry one for self-defense in your vehicle or on the street. Individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law. The advice given here may not apply in the area where you live. Advice from a local, gun-savvy defense attorney is always recommended. Don't forget, on the tail end of this show, you have to watch it all the way to the end to see my new high-tech disclaimer that says nothing that I say matters and don't pay any attention to the guy in the blue shirt. This first story comes from WLWT TV5 NBC, reported December 9 in Cincinnati, Ohio, that 4 months earlier, on August 8, 2020, the store owner reported a man known to him, later identified as a local 19-year-old, had attempted to rob his store. He said the man entered the store, showed a silver semi-automatic handgun, and demanded money. When the store owner refused, the man said, "I'll be back." I think he thought he was Arnold. An investigation, including review of neighborhood video, revealed this same 19-year-old had previously tried to rob the grocery store on 2 previous occasions. The store owner reported another robbery attempt on November 14, 2020. He said the 19-year-old entered the store and immediately walked behind the counter and tried to open the cash register. He then pushed the store owner against the wall and ordered him to open the register or he would kill him. He took around $400 from the register before fleeing the store. On November 19, 2020, the store owner saw the same suspect coming toward the store and attempted to lock the door to prevent him from entering. But the suspect was able to get inside the door before it electronically locked. He had a button he could push to lock the door, but the guy already had moved it and it didn't lock. The owner was backed into a corner as the robber approached him. That's when the store owner pulled out his gun and shot the 19-year-old. The wounded would-be robber fled on foot, but collapsed from his injuries on Purcell Avenue. The suspect was taken to University of Cincinnati Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. All the incidents have been tied to the same 19-year-old following an extensive investigation. Hamilton County prosecutors named Joe Ditters, D-E-T-E-R-S, said this individual did not once, not twice, but 3 times rob the same store. The first time he pulled a gun and the second time he assaulted the store owner. We are thankful the owner was able to protect himself. That's nice to hear from the prosecutor. When a habitual armed robber threatens to kill you at gunpoint, it is clearly reasonable to save your own life by a suitable application of deadly force. Hopefully this incident will end with a quick no charges filed. Would be such a nice thing, as well as limiting any possibility of a civil lawsuit from the deceased's family. At this point, the attendant victim should have a criminal defense attorney on board to review the incident just in case one is actually needed. Always want to get an attorney right away, so there's somebody on your side as a cushion between you and the investigation. Just a good idea. Now, story number 2 is from the Orlando Sentinel. A journalist named David Harris reported December 10, 2020 in Orlando, Florida. According to the Castleberry police, just after 8:30 in the morning, a local woman and boyfriend were having an argument. At some point, he pinned her against the bed and put a gun to her head before trying to suffocate her with a pillow. The woman was able to break free and grabbed a gun from the bottom shelf of the nightstand. When she ran outside, the boyfriend followed her and shot her in the left forearm with his gun. The woman fired several shots in return, hitting him in the chest. She then went to a neighbor's house. A male resident at that house called 911. On the 911 recording, the caller said she's screaming that he could be dead because she shot him at close range. I heard a lot of shots. Oh my God, she's losing her mind over there. With officers on the way, the woman ran back into the house and tried to stop her boyfriend's bleeding. Castleberry Police Chief Larry Krantz said after consulting with the Seminole Brevard, I can't say these Hispanic names, Seminole Brevard State Attorney's Office, it appears the woman acted in self-defense and charges are unlikely to be filed. He added, this case was investigated with the support of the State Attorney's Office, and while there remain a few details to review, we do not believe the outcome will change based on the evidence they have so far. Comments on this, another perfect incident using deadly force in self-defense. First, the victim attempts to escape. Then she sees to it that 911 is called. After that, she returns to the scene to try and stop the perp from dying by applying medical aid. Self-defense cases don't get any better than this. The only thing that could muck it up is talking to friends and neighbors about the incident, or even worse, speaking to the media. Any comment like, I'm really sorry this happened, can be taken out of context as an admission of wrongdoing. If this was you, of course you are sorry it happened. It really messed up your life. Just keep those comments to yourself. Don't talk to neighbors, friends, and media. Always, if you're involved in one of these incidents, dummy up. We're going to break here for a commercial on my book that's available on Amazon.com, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. My latest book, Self-Defense with Firearms, Use of Force in Nevada, is now available on Amazon Kindle for $4.95. You can download it now. It contains examples of dozens of shootings and pointing a firearm cases that I personally experienced in my 24 years in law enforcement, or where I testified in court or deposition as a firearm and use of force expert. The book is about the use of firearms in defense of yourself and others in my home state of Nevada. I have appeared as an expert witness in Nevada courts dozens of times, and that experience has shown me the necessity of putting pen to paper once again. Nevada state law as printed can be misleading to those of you who read it, as it is written in legal jargon, what I usually call lawyer speak. These statutes are also bent or even broken by the courts in their everyday decisions that we generally call case law. Those are rulings that say this or that statute does not apply in a particular incident and similar cases. That causes the law you are depending on when you make a decision to use your firearm only partially or not apply at all to your actions. Relevant Nevada statute numbers are included here and there, so readers may look up current wording on the Nevada State website. Teaching firearms in 28 law enforcement academies, including cadets from 26 different Nevada agencies, personally instructing over 30,000 concealed firearm permit students and 20,000 private security officers, I've discovered a lot of commonalities in deadly force incidents. Less than 100 pages, this book offers advice that can save lives and costs of expensive defense lawyers to reduce your losses in the inevitable civil lawsuits that follow these incidents. Get a copy, learn how to avoid, prepare for, and react to life-threatening situations. That's on Amazon Kindle. The hard copies look like this, and they are available also through Kindle or through my website. Okay. Story number 3 from WVUE Fox 8, a journalist named Rob Mason, reports December 9, 2020 in Lacombe, Louisiana. St. Tammany Sheriff's deputies are investigating a double homicide in Lacombe in which 2 of the 4 armed intruders were killed. The homeowner's 4-year-old daughter was also struck by a bullet in the crossfire. 4 armed intruders entered the home at the end of Palmer Drive around 10 in the morning, and all 4 were shot by the homeowner. This is a tight-knit community here on Palmer Drive where everyone is either related or has known each other for years, and many are stunned over what happened here on Tuesday. The St. Tammany Coroner's Office has identified the deceased as a 25-year-old and a 21-year-old from Hammond, nearby town. The homeowner's 4-year-old daughter was also apparently struck in the crossfire. A relative tells us that the homeowner may have been pistol whipped before he fired at the intruders. Neighbors say they waited 24 hours to learn about the shooting. It was late morning and we heard patrol cars one after the other and detective cars, and then there were the ambulances. There were several dozen emergency vehicles involved. The Shannon Bourdillon of Bayou Adventure said to the press in Lacombe. Family members say they are relieved the 4-year-old girl in the house was operated on and is expected to be okay. The St. Tammany Sheriff's Office says they didn't want to put out the information sooner because they did not want to impede the investigation, which is ongoing. The homeowner is also expected to be okay. Normally, when we look at the comments now, a shooting like this in a backwoods area, you think it's gangbangers shooting at gangbangers and so forth. This family runs Bayou Adventure, a company that operates tours to see swamp creatures. They are well known, and I expect this was a robbery attempt for cash and firearms. Whatever reasoning of the attackers, another example of armed citizens being able to defend themselves, Just imagine the result if these victims had not been armed. With children there, they have a large stock of equipment. They rent boats and rubber rafts to go swamps, looking through the swamps and looking at alligators and so forth. This is why they have guns. A great place to visit. I spent some time on the websites. Look it up. You will enjoy what you find. Story number 4. KHOU-TV 11, a journalist named Chloe Alexander reported December 10, 2020 in New Caney, Texas, C-A-N-E-Y. I presume it's pronounced Caney. Montgomery County Sheriff says a man house sitting for a friend shot an attempted burglar on Wednesday night in New Caney. This happened shortly before 10 in the evening in the 23,700 block of Pankey Avenue, Longstreet. Investigators say the man heard a banging sound coming from the back of the house, and when he went to see what was going on, he was confronted by an unknown suspect who was holding a hammer, hence the banging sound. Deputies said the suspect charged at the man, and that's when the man pulled out his gun and shot the suspect multiple times in the backyard of the home. He had gone out to look, and the guy was in the backyard. The house sitter then called the police. The suspect died on scene. His identity has not been released, but deputies say he was in his 20s. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office said no charges have been filed at this time, but an investigation is underway. Comments on this. A hammer is certainly a deadly weapon that can cause serious physical injury or death. There is nothing in the story about warnings being given, but it sounds like there was not sufficient time available for that. Where this happened under Texas law, I do not expect the shooter is in any danger of criminal charges or a successful civil lawsuit. Just doing a favor for watching a home puts this intended victim in a sudden life and death situation. If you can be armed, always carry. You never get to pick the time and the place of the attack. Criminals and nutcases of the world always get to pick the when and where. If you can carry your gun, carry it. We're going to stop for a word here from some of our friends and associates. You'd call them commercials on anything else, but these basically are just people I know that have helped me out and help out the show. We'll be right back. Freestyle Martial Arts, located at Jones and Russell here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-551-9009. That's 702-551-9009. CCS Gunsmithing. Chris Eifelt, the man who does all the NRA help, he's at 2216 South Rainbow Boulevard near Sahara. He can be reached at 702-365-1732. Once again, 702-365-1732. Jerry Creed, a trust attorney. If you have a firearms trust or need one, this is your guy. You can reach Jerry at 702-806-7777. That is 702-806-7777. CCW Maggie is found all over the internet. You can reach her by phone at 702-375-5900. That's 702-375-5900. All sorts of firearms training, ladies-only classes. She is the best of the best. Call CCW Maggie. And here I am again. Story number 5. Fox 29 in Philadelphia reports December 12, 2020 in Nicetown, Pennsylvania. Love that name, Nicetown, Pennsylvania. Officials say two friends stopped at a gas station at the corner of West Hunting Park Avenue and North Broad Street on Saturday just after 10:30 in the evening. One of the two friends went into the convenience store while the other remained outside. It was then, authorities say, two male would-be carjackers pulled up in a dark SUV and attempted their apparently pre-planned carjacking. The friend who had gone into the store came outside, saw the two males attempting the carjacking, and began to fire his gun. The two carjackers in the dark SUV reportedly now returned fire. In the exchange of gunfire, one of the carjackers was hit in the chest. That carjacker was transported by police to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. The second carjacker fled the scene in the dark SUV. One of the two friends who saw the carjacking and fired his weapon was said to be licensed to carry a gun. The investigation is still ongoing. Tips can be submitted by calling 215-686-TIPS, T-I-P-S, that is 215-686-8477, or texting PPD TIP, that is 773847. Tips can also be submitted anonymously online. All tips are confidential. This is going to get complicated. Comments here. The carjacker leaves his wounded partner in the parking lot and drives away. Okay, there's really little honor among thieves. The friend who fired at the carjacker seems justified in trying to protect the second friend who was in danger of serious injury or death. An armed carjacking is certainly a violent crime, indicating an armed response, as the carjackers were obviously armed. The issue in question is the defending friend fired first. The escaping carjacker, when captured, may have a self-defense claim in that he appears to have fired back at someone who was shooting at him. The carjacker apparently did not hit anyone, although he certainly endangered people in the area. These are extremely difficult cases. If you fire preemptively at your opponent, and it turns out then he claims self-defense, it's all in the timing. Our last story today, we're going to have some further information on who fired first and whatever and how those cases work. So be sure you watch this all to the end. If you are carrying a gun, you need to watch the show, as we say. Story number 6. The Baltimore Sun, a journalist named McKenna Oxenden, reports December 14, 2020, Baltimore County Police spokesman Jennifer Peach said on Sunday that officers were called to the Golden Ring Shopping Center at 6420 Petrie Way Road in Roseville, the Roseville area, just after 5:20 in the afternoon, responding to a report of a shooting. When police arrived, they found a male subject suffering from a gunshot wound in the upper body. That subject, a resident of the 5300 block of King Arthur Circle, was transported with life-threatening injuries to Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center, where he later died. Police said the deceased subject arranged a meeting in the parking lot with a man he found on a popular app selling an expensive pair of shoes. During the transaction, he attempted to rob the seller. The seller pulled a handgun, shot once, called 911, and remained at the scene. Responding officers located the buyer lying in the parking lot with a gunshot wound. They recovered a loaded handgun from him before he was transported to the hospital. Police say in a news release, investigators interviewed the seller, who is cooperating with the investigation. Once detectives from the Baltimore County Police Homicide Unit have concluded their investigation, The case will be reviewed by the Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office. All the businesses in the shopping center were able to stay open while police investigated, since the shooting was in the parking lot away from the storefronts. Officer Peach said the shooting took her a little by surprise because normally the department advises people to exchange something after buying it online or meeting for the first time to do it in a well-lit public area. This is disturbing for us as a police department, she says, and for people around here because it's in the holidays. This is a very busy shopping center. This is the type of area we would normally tell people to go to if they're meeting someone for buying something online. Bad guys show up everywhere. Same kind of comment about always carry a gun. Comments here. This type of robbery or attempted robbery in this case never ends. Almost every jurisdiction in the country now provides a safe area, usually a police station front parking lot. If I recall correctly, our North Las Vegas Police Department here was one of the first in the nation to do this. Shopping online with private buyers or sellers and then meeting them in person other than at a police station in daylight is extremely dangerous. The reward of saving a few bucks is not worth the risk of getting beaten up, shot, or killed. Don't do this. If someone's trying to sell something online that's a particularly good price and he wants you to go to some dark alley to meet him, don't go. We're going to break here from another word from a few of our friends and associates. I'll be right back with a new segment, this week's training tip. Attorney Donald J. Green, a common guest of mine on Fired Up. He can be reached at 702-409-8239. He specializes in gun case litigation. He is your man. Don Green, 702-409-8239. And Battlefield Vegas, my new kind of home for this show. They're on Circus Drive, directly behind the Circus Hotel and Casino. You can find them there with CCW classes and an amazing place for gun rentals, everything you could possibly imagine. Check out, if you're in town as a tourist, check out battlefieldvegas.com. This week's training tip. When police, security, or private citizens give an order to show me your hands, they may get the same movement from a compliant person as from someone trying to kill them. That leaves no time to identify or respond to the threat. ForceScienceInstitute.org. Force Science is where I received the best use of force training imaginable, invites readers to rethink the show me your hands command. We know that hands kill and that we should watch the opponent's hands. Those are well-founded concepts that are taught in all police situations. You see it on TV all the time, show me your hands, show me your hands. The irony is, in order to show me your hands may invite the same movement from a compliant opponent as it does from an assaultive one. Meaning compliance can look like pre-assault behavior and pre-assault behavior can look like compliance. An alternative might be freeze, do not move. Commands must be loud and delivered with determined attitude. In deadly force encounters, we know that action beats reaction. He who starts first usually wins. This is because it takes time to perceive an opponent's movement, identify a weapon, interpret his actions, decide on a response, and then execute that response. In force science traffic stop studies, Officers were able to identify and react to an armed threat in less than half a second, but still took nearly 2 additional seconds to move, draw, and respond with aimed fire. Compare this to the suspects from the previous research who were able to pull a concealed weapon and fire in an average of 1/4 of a second. To put these speeds into perspective, it takes about twice the time for your brain to perceive and react to a visual stimulus. With all these speed advantages, opponents could conceivably fire before you even perceive any movement and could continue to fire 10 or more rounds before you can return fire. With edged weapons, attacks can be even faster, with that research showing knife thrusts at speed of 1/10 of a second, as fast as 1/10 of a second. The bottom line here is to use a command that tells your opponent not to move. Then tell him to go away as police are already on the way. Remember, let the professionals handle apprehensions if possible. So use the command, don't move. That way, you don't have to worry about interpreting. If he's not doing what you say, you're in a lot better way than if you say something that's, show me your hands, and you ask him to move. We're going to be ending here. Please check out my recent shows at firedupwithboberwin.com. It contains several dozen episodes. Please patronize our friends and supporters. I'll be back next Thursday on my website, firedupwithboberwin.com, the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other websites, television, and radio stations. When watching any media, just click on subscribe and new shows will be sent to you automatically. My logo merchandise, hats, shirts, books, mostly books, are available at Battlefield Vegas, just behind Circus Circus on the Las Vegas Strip. If you're ever in Las Vegas, Battlefield Vegas is a must-see attraction. You can shoot a minigun or any of hundreds of firearms or even crush a car with an Abrams tank at their associated outdoor facility. They're good people over there. Transportation is provided. Contact info@battlefieldvegas.com. Thanks for watching Fired Up. Watch the disclaimer at the end. I paid lots of money for it. See you next week.